I will never ever treat people wrong. So like that's why when people treat me wrong, it makes me like feel very upset. Like people being like nasty to me, and I don't understand the language. It's just too much. I sometimes cry though. Sometimes cry like every day I cried, and one day I said to my mom, I'm not going back to school. Then after I said, when I was in Africa, in school, nobody challenged me. Then why should I come here? And everybody like start like bullying me and like stuff. But I fight every day. I fight every day.
You can bring your jacket with you. The weather today is blue and sunny, alright? So bear in mind, we want you to have good fun.
First time I come to UK at 2 years time ago, and I've been quite a while in UK. They learn some of English. They can now easily talk English, but some of words are difficult for me.
17.
Now we don't know, I think, what are the long-term effects of migration in childhood on children's well-being when they are older, because there is clear disruption to children's emotions, to children's relationships, to children's security. Sometimes families separate when they migrate, so one parent will come alone and bring the family later. We've had some families who talked about divorcing and separation as a result of migration, so they've lived apart for several months or years, and that led to considerable disruption to children and eventually to the to divorce and separation. So migration is by no means an easy task and an easy experience for children and young people.
We work with vulnerable and disadvantaged children. We have a strong focus in terms of working with black and minority ethnic communities, so at least 70% of our children and families that we work with are from the different diverse communities in Edinburgh.
It's about helping children be in control of their own progress, supporting them to do that, rather than forcing progress. So that might mean a child comes to the group and it takes 6 sessions before they take their jacket off. But that's progress. They take their jacket off. You know, after 6 sessions, again, it's about long-term, slow, small steps.
We asked children what it was like to be an Eastern European new arrival in Scotland, maybe in a school where there's just 1 or 2 other children who speak your language. And overall, children talked about the struggles that they had to adapt to that, how sometimes they were, singled out, and some had experienced racism, although we feel that the vast majority of children think that that wasn't an issue for them. And many of them said that there were isolated incidents that they were victims of, but it wasn't, a general feeling that they had. One thing that was quite common was for children who lived maybe in deprived areas, they were more likely to experience racism. For example, Roma children from different countries who were victims of racism before migration were victims of racism after migration. A lot of them talked about being bullied or being victims of racism at school.
What is interesting is that migrant people from Europe who've come in more recently, I find it disturbing that at one time we thought racism was only directed of people of color. But what we've noticed recently is that prejudice and discrimination is about difference.
Parents quite often talked about the fear of racism, so they didn't let the children go out by themselves. Maybe in their own country children had more freedom to go out, but here after migration, because they were not sure of what could happen to them or the area in which they lived, maybe they thought it wasn't safe, they restricted their children's movement. So a lot of the children talked about the fact that they were not allowed to go to the swimming pool by themselves, or they were not allowed to play outdoors as they were allowed in their country of origin. Many of them turned to technology. So they were spending more time indoor, so they were spending more time on computer, for example, trying to use technology to keep in touch with their family, to keep in touch with their friends back in their countries through chat programs and so on. So a kind of shift of leisure time from outdoor to indoor. Some of them talked about that.
I miss my grannies, and I missed when I remembered when I go to I wear socks and then I just go and see all of the things, like because I have like a window in my bedroom in Poland, I can see all of the view of the village, and I was being quite actually sad to live here, to leave Poland alone without me and all the friends.
I think obviously some children adapt fairly easily to the adjustment process, and I think a lot depends on how available and how aware the parents are about some of the issues and difficulties children face and how able they are to support their children in that process. But obviously parents can be affected by many issues in terms of maybe trying to find houses, adjusting to a new culture, language difficulties, trying to find employment. So sometimes parents understandably can be very preoccupied with their own issues. So children often then can feel very alone unless there's somebody there really to listen to their experiences and their voices.
You know, when you are a migrant, when you are new, everything is new to you, and you will be overwhelmed with all the information, with new things. Everything is new, and you don't know. And that would be great if there are helping hands around.
Eventually, when I started speaking English fluently, my accent and my grammar, still to this moment, is very understandable. Not like people don't understand me very well. I wasn't getting bullied, but I did offend a few people, but that was purely because of cultural differences. Because back home, like something seems like a joke, here was seen as quite offensive, and I did make a few people upset, and that's why from the start people kind of didn't really want to be friends with me, especially girls, so that was not very good.
Quite often children said that it wasn't their decision to come to Scotland, and families didn't often consult children when they were coming to Scotland. One case that I remember really well was of a girl who came with her mother, and her mother was looking for a job, and she wasn't sure she was going to find work and flats to live in and so on. So she told her daughter that they were just coming on a holiday in Scotland, and they came during the summertime, which gave her mother enough time to find a job, find accommodation, and then decided to stay. And the girl talked about the feelings of not saying goodbye to her friends and family, not having things that were important to her, like personal possessions and toys, and things that she missed from her country of origin. And although it's not far in terms of distance, and there's cheap traveling opportunities and so on, many children didn't have that many opportunities to go back and see their family that often. So in many cases, migration was a very traumatic experience for children, and they had to show tremendous emotional strength, and adapt to the situation.
I was been in school, and that was actually before the summer holidays, and I told my old friends I'm going to, I don't really actually know I'll go to Scotland, but I told I'm going to London, and then they say, oh, okay, that's cool, and I say okay. And I was quite actually shocked, because when we've been in a plane, my mom told me we were gonna stay for quite a while in there, and I've been quite sad, but I still making a relationship with my friends outside of Poland, because I have Skype, and that's making me better, feeling better.
We have 8 different projects within the agency that are funded through different funding streams, and some of the projects overlap, so children and families might be accessing services from different projects. We like to think that we offer early and effective intervention, so trying to intervene before problems escalate, dealing with both practical issues, and that can be about housing, financial issues, but also dealing with more personal issues, which can be about emotional difficulties, dealing with discrimination, dealing with issues of loss or trauma, or issues surrounding migration. So we have a range of different projects which offer focused support for children at different kind of life stages, or children affected by particular issues.
The first thing is the language, and the second thing is the friends. Because in China I have so many friends, and when I from China came to here, I very miss my friends. So that is very difficult to me. Because I come from different country to here, and I'm a foreigner, so many people think my English is not well, so they don't talk with me, and they said, your English is not very well, so you need to study English more harder.
Social isolation is almost in all cases is appearing at the point of referral as one of the struggles for most of our families. And that's paired with the lack of English skills. It makes it really difficult for some of the parents, as I said, especially with young children, when they don't have regular communication with any schools because their children are not at school. It's very difficult to then, if you have no English, to go out and socialize and meet people and arrive in a group where mostly is attended by white Scottish parents.
I suppose what we would do is we'd listen to parents' concerns. It could be about feeding, it could be about sleeping, it could be that family hasn't really got anyone else to talk to. They might have a partner at home, but the partner might be working long hours.
Does the chain hang at the back then? Does it hang at the...
Yeah, the language thing was probably the most difficult part. And just people, like, they made it so much more harder. People at school, like, you'd think they'd be nice to you, but they weren't. But not everyone's like that. So, like, if anybody's moving over, don't think everyone's gonna be really mean. People are nice, but you just gotta sort of separate the nice ones from the, not so nice ones.
What you like? Yeah.
What
I'm gonna try. I'm not very good at clipping these things.
We're speaking from a cultural point of view. Turkey's a place where people are like, they're generally very welcoming and warm, and you don't feel that as much here. Like people sort of, they're a bit more, I don't know, they just kind of put like a line in between you and them, like you can't cross that line. Whereas in Turkey, like you could have just met an hour ago and people will act like you're best friends and you've known each other for like your entire life.
What do you want to do to change it? Is there something you'd like to do? Like, no, I don't take anything.
I find that people who are foreigners are much more, you know, closer to you. Like actually I have some Polish friends and I feel like they're a lot sort of warmer and welcoming as opposed to like my Scottish friends, if that makes sense.
Alright, so you're going to work with a smaller person today, because that what it allows us to do is to keep the weight of the boat in the right position. It means the heavier people to the back, the smaller people to the front.
What we try and do is do initial assessments for all the children that come in to get a wider picture of school and home and language, so that we can match them with what would meet their needs, be it a group or individual work or family work. It is all referral basis, and our group is a little different to some of the old ones. Is our group's very closed, so we will start a 10-week program with 6 or 7 children, and it'll be the same 6 or 7 children. There'll be no other children added to the group along the term, so another one would have to go on the waiting list. But the ones we do in schools, normally we'll have liaison with schools. We'll go in and speak about the project and the agency and what we look for and what our groups are all about, because I think sometimes it's missed a little bit. And teachers, as I identified before, teachers seem to point out the children that are causing quite a disruption in class, which they would benefit from our group, they really do, but about the composition of a group and having quieter children and louder children and children of different ethnicities and a mix of genders, and how that's beneficial for the child within a small therapeutic group. So that's how we'd run our school groups. The ones here, sometimes it's children that have been in our school groups previously, referrals in for group work, some kids that have had individual work coming along to groups, and it'll be 10 or 11 week program with the same children.
You know, it's 1.5 hours a week, maybe I see the children, you know, and people ask, well, it's not a long time, and can you really sort of make a difference? And I suppose, as a colleague had said to me once, it's a small window into a child's world. It's like giving them a different download of something completely different, you know, in terms of safe adults, safe space. This is how it's done. This is how it's meant to be, you know, in terms of having appropriate boundaries, being encouraged, being praised, being part of a group that's safe and contained. So yeah.
We do find that with a lot of children, that when they're referred to our groups by schools that we're working in or other teachers, that they'll say something around thinking that the child has got developmental delay, or that there's some level of learning difficulty, or that they're going to be put forward for testing for ADHD or autism. And we've had it with a few children we've worked with, that throughout our group program we've actually learnt that it's not that they have learning difficulties, it's that they can't communicate, they can't express themselves other than by the behaviours that they're displaying, and they can't access the curriculum in the same way that other people or other children can. So having our groups has helped explore that and open that up to teachers a little bit, that there's not just one reason that a child might be displaying challenging behaviour in the classroom or be quite introverted. There's a wide multitude of reasons that actually they might be trying to communicate something that they can't communicate with language.
We lived in one place, but my dad was a traveller, and I remember most of my family, they were all in this. They all had their they were all living in their caravans. I thought I had like an Irish accent, so I thought everybody sounded really weird. then I just picked up the accent and then I was just settled down. I quite missed my family, but then after a couple of weeks I was fine.
And do you still see your family back in Ireland?
No.
We use a football like a tool to just build self-confidence for these children and encourage to do some sport and also work with teams, like a team. Just build up motivation for children, change life for good way.
One of the issues for us as an agency, we're always trying to be creative and both to sustain and maintain the existing projects, but also trying to develop new projects in the light of the need that we see and trying to develop new projects for that. And obviously for all voluntary organisations, the challenge is to maintain our funding, to seek new funding, and that is a big challenge. We want to make more links with the local and bigger business community as well, so that we're more embedded within the community and can draw on the support of of the local community. So I think that's the way that we would like to see ourselves developing.
Children didn't choose to be migrants, and they shouldn't be treated as migrants, they should be treated as children first. And the priority should be on looking at the children's needs in a holistic way and say, what does this child need, rather than think, what do these migrants need or migrant group need. So in terms of individual children, where are they at in terms of emotional well-being, how are they coping with the whole process, what are their academic needs, where are they at in terms of academic development, not to take their level of English as an indication of, for example, their academic ability in maths. A lot of children are really, really advanced in math, and we shouldn't say that, they need to catch up on English, because that might take 5 or 7 years. We need to look at each child individually and say, what does this child need to cope well with their new circumstances, and treat them as children first rather than think of them as migrants.